I'm not sure baby reef is the right term here. I get it, it's smaller, but 39.5 millimeters ain't baby, baby. Well, I guess if you read the comments in some of my videos, 39.5 millimeters is either still way too big, or a size for petite women, young children, and men with self-respect. The other Formex Reef still exists, and it's still 42 millimeters, and I think that's great because I know there's a market for both sizes. And other than the size, just about everything else is the same between these two watches. So when I tell you about the baby reef, most of that stuff still applies to the daddy reef. No, I don't like the sound of that. All that's cool because the Reef watches have a few neat tricks that's on top of a pretty interesting design. And I want to note right away that this watch is a prototype, which is why the crown is sticking out a bit, even though it's screwed down. This is all fixed in the production model, and despite what I just said, I look forward to people asking in the comments why the crown looks like it's sticking out. YouTube, is there no end to your delights? Formex has been around for a while. Swiss-made, mostly sporty watches, but I only learned about Formex maybe 4 years ago with the Essence watches, which I did a video about. Another example of a unique design style, chronometer certification, and what I'd call an entry-level luxury price, starting around $1,500, which is about $1,400 more than you need to spend on a watch. And by you, I mean me, and by me, I mean help. Since then, I've been hands-on with the bigger Reef, the 42mm diver, and the Reef GMT. In quality and price, these live somewhere above a Seiko Prospex, definitely above that, and just below something like a Longines diver. At least in price, I can't speak to the quality of those yet. This new, smaller Reef came out in early December. 39.5 millimeters across, measuring at the bezel. That does not include the symmetrical crown guard situation. It's 11 millimeters thick, 45.5 millimeters long with 22 millimeter lugs. All the Reefs have 300 meters of water resistance. On a bracelet sized for my 7-inch wrist, the baby Reef weighs 154 grams. The larger Reef, which I'm definitely not calling the daddy Reef, weighs 168 grams, again sized for my 7-inch wrist. 7-inch wrist. 7-inch wrist. This configuration of the Reef costs $1,960. This is the most expensive configuration of this watch, but depending on the strap, they can go as low as $1,650. That's because you can choose one of several straps for these watches, or dial colors, or bezels. I did math numbers on this, and I think there are 112 possible variations of the baby Reef. And what's kind of cool is that you can do some of your own variating at home. Just like with a large Reef, this bezel is made to be removable without any tools except for the person who owns the watch. There are 4 bezels that you can buy separately, 3 ceramic and 1 steel. They're each $170. Now, I would not pair this green dial with the blue bezel. I find this deeply upsetting. But you know, if this makes you happy, then enjoy your watch and your shameful, lonely life. Inside the Reef, both sizes of the Reef diver, is the Sellita SW300-1 that's been certified as a chronometer by KOSK. The KOSK certification was something that caught my attention about the first Formex that I tried. KOSK chronometer certification is something, or was something, pretty rare in watches costing less than $3,000. So for a watch to have that kind of accuracy rating for $1,650, that's kind of surprising. The SW300-1 has 56 hours of power reserve, and of course it hacks and can be wound by hand. The Reef, both sizes of the Reef, have a couple more tricks besides the customizable bezel. The bracelet has a quick release system that's really easy to use. There's a button under each end link and it's smooth and simple. I'd kind of expect a system like this at this price to feel a bit more, I don't know, like gritty or sticky, but this one is really well done. And then there's the bracelet clasp. It has an adjustment system with 8 settings. Just great to have this, and especially great because you can tighten this without taking it off your wrist. You just kind of push the bracelet into the clasp and it ratchets tighter. I love this. Everyone else is taking their watches off to shorten them like a bunch of barbarians. And even the deployant clasp for the straps has an adjustment system, which is something you just don't see, and maybe that's because it's not really necessary, but hey, it's novel. And I guess if you're picking up what Formex is throwing down, the question becomes which size? 39.5 millimeters or 42 millimeters. I already told you my wrist size, but just in case you forgot it, I'm not going to repeat it. And for those of you who pay attention, I feel good about wearing either size of the Reef. The 39.5mm certainly does not feel too small, and the 42mm definitely does not feel too big. The larger watch is only 0.2mm thicker at 11.2mm, so I'm just going to say that they're both very slim for 300-meter dive watches. And they both feel comfortable, low centers of gravity. The lugs on the larger watch don't really overhang the edges of my wrist. And if I were to pick one of these watches for my mysteriously sized wrist, I'd go with the 42, the Daddy Reef. For this sporty, rugged, angular design, I like the larger watch. I think that if the Reef was more vintage inspired or the design was more luxurious or elegant, I'd go with a smaller size. But to me, the Reef has a certain intentional, aggressive design, and I like that. So for me, bigger makes more sense. But if you want to wear the 39 on a 9-inch wrist, do it. If you want to wear the 42 on a 5-inch wrist, live your life. I'm not going to criticize your choices. Just maybe just stay off the internet for your own protection. Now that there's a Baby Reef diver, I wouldn't be surprised if we also saw a Baby Reef GMT. I have no knowledge of that. I haven't asked Formex about it, but I think that makes some sense. And one thing I like about their GMT watch is that you can pop on a diving bezel whenever you want, so you can track 2 time zones and still be able to time your dive, or more likely the steep time of your fancy hot beverage. Either way, it's great to see this variety at this price with this quality. And because you've made it this far in the video, let me reward you with a watch joke. I lost my watch and I keep meaning to look for it, but I can never find the time.